Robin that I really can't stand the idea of living here, or at least at this point. Robin, I think, was the last to give up on the dream.
What you're about to witness is not merely a story about a reality television family, but an extensive, meticulously researched expose that uncovers the hidden, shadowed operations of the Brown family and their infamous Coyote Pass property in Flagstaff, Arizona, revealing that Cody Brown, portrayed to audiences as a patriarch struggling with domestic logistics and financial strain, was in fact orchestrating a highly calculated, multi-phase operation intertwining financial manipulation, environmental tampering, and human experimentation, beginning in 2017 when the family, claiming Las Vegas had become less accepting and intolerant, purchased 14 sprawling acres for $820,000, a sum publicly portrayed as financially burdensome to justify delays and disputes over plot assignments, trees, and greenhouse space, but in reality was strategically set to conceal the true purpose of the acquisition, as every argument, delay, and moment of apparent indecision by Cody was a carefully staged distraction to mask the multi-layered Project Phoenix Rising, a secret operation designed to acquire environmentally compromised land, deploy untested chemical agents, and profit from the eventual rehabilitation of the property while using his own family members, particularly Janelle, as unwitting biological monitors. Cody's intense focus on the construction of a massive underground cistern, framed on camera as a practical measure for water storage to support the family's off-grid lifestyle, was in reality an off-grid mixing and dilution station for highly concentrated chemical compounds, carefully designed to avoid traceable municipal water usage and detection. And his refusal to assign permanent lots to his wives was not indecision, but a deliberate legal and financial strategy to maintain the property as a single transferable asset, ensuring that future sales and developments could occur without subdivision complications. While his apparent emotional detachment from his wife's dreams, seen as frustration or apathy on television, was actually the careful management of a clandestine operation requiring secrecy, timing, and manipulation. Janelle Brown, who in the summer of 2021 purchased an RV and moved onto the land full-time, was both a cover story to legitimize unusual nocturnal activity, unmarked trucks, and off-hours crews, and a human biosensor, with her fatigue, respiratory irritation, skin reactions, and chronic exhaustion monitored as key data points to assess the toxicity and dispersal of chemical agents in soil and air. And Cody's camera-captured support was not marital encouragement, but clinical observation to ensure the chemicals had dissipated to safe levels, while the other wives, Mary, Christine, and Robin, participated in household disputes, planning, and televised arguments that distracted audiences and local authorities from the true operational focus, which included transporting, mixing, and applying hazardous substances under the cover of night, falsifying manifests, maintaining coded payrolls, and coordinating crews to avoid detection, all under strict secrecy. A reality only revealed years later when whistleblower Alex Reyes, a former logistics coordinator for Vidian Land Solutions, came forward to the EPA in 2023 with internal emails, shipment logs, coded financial records, and the secret Phoenix Rising contract, exposing a multi-phase scheme to acquire undervalued or contaminated land, apply volatile chemical treatments undetected, monitor human and environmental reactions, and then sell the rehabilitated properties at massive profits, revealing that every televised argument, delayed construction, indecision, or emotional display was actually part of a meticulously orchestrated plan combining media manipulation, psychological control, and financial exploitation, demonstrating that what appeared to be domestic dysfunction was in fact a smokescreen for environmental crimes, human experimentation, and high-stakes profit with every move, including Christine's longing for trees, Robin's focus on personal space, and Mary's contributions to domestic planning, carefully documented, interpreted, and used to calibrate the narrative for television, while simultaneously advancing the clandestine chemical experiment. The chemical operations themselves involved night deliveries of unmarked barrels, off-hour applications, and the careful deployment of volatile compounds designed to remain active in the soil while leaving minimal evidence. With Janelle's daily exposure serving as a real-time gauge of the chemical's potency, her observed reactions guiding subsequent applications and concentration adjustments, all while maintaining the illusion of normal family life for both cameras and neighbors. A deception made possible by Cody's strategic planning, legal foresight, and psychological manipulation, ensuring that even those living on site remained oblivious to the full scope of the operation, which combined advanced environmental science, chemical engineering, psychological oversight, financial acumen, and media production into a single, audaciously executed plan. The Phoenix Rising contract explicitly detailed timelines, chemical concentrations, and operational protocols, requiring precise scheduling to avoid outside detection while maintaining data collection from both human subjects and environmental indicators, with coded communications coordinating the movements of crews, the application of compounds, and the monitoring of on-site activity, while simultaneously ensuring that every public-facing argument or moment of tension among the wives contributed to a narrative of family struggle that concealed the true nature of the experiment. Over months and years, the wives' activities, their interactions, their emotional highs and lows, and their personal projects were all carefully staged, monitored, and manipulated to create both cover and data points, as Cody meticulously tracked the deployment, effectiveness, and impact of chemical agents while managing a media facade of reality television drama, creating a situation in which every laugh, cry, or argument on camera was intertwined with an ethically and legally dubious experiment involving human exposure, environmental contamination, and financial manipulation. The whistleblower, Alex Reyes, not only confirmed the operational details, but also provided tangible proof of Cody's involvement in high-level coordination, demonstrating that his role was far more than that of a distracted family patriarch, and that the Browns' domestic life, as televised, had been weaponized as part of a carefully controlled experiment, one that leveraged human life, environmental science, and media perception to achieve maximum financial gain while minimizing public scrutiny. This single continuous operation involved multiple overlapping components: legal strategy to preserve property value, psychological manipulation of wives, chemical application and environmental monitoring, financial planning for future resale, media management to sustain the reality TV narrative, and clandestine coordination with third-party contractors, all of which were carefully timed, meticulously recorded, and orchestrated over several years, leaving a chilling legacy that rewrites the public understanding of the Brown family, Coyote Pass, and the very ethics of reality television, exposing a web of deception, greed, human exploitation, and environmental manipulation hidden in plain sight. A story so extensive, complex, and ethically disturbing that it challenges the boundaries of belief, leaving viewers, investigators, and even family members questioning everything they thought they knew, and proving that the so-called family dream was never a dream at all, but a laboratory, a financial asset, and a stage for one of the most audaciously concealed operations in the history of reality television, where human life, the environment, and media perception were all tools in an unprecedented and morally catastrophic plan. A single narrative that combines deception, calculation, experimentation, and manipulation into one continuous, horrifying reality that, when fully understood, forever changes the perception of what the Browns and Coyote Pass truly represented, creating a story that is not merely about television or family, but about the dark interplay of ambition, secrecy, and human cost hidden beneath the comforting veneer of domestic life. The $820,000 price tag for Coyote Pass, which Cody Brown had presented to the public as a high-value real estate investment, was a meticulously engineered illusion, a carefully constructed narrative designed to conceal the true magnitude of both the financial and environmental risks lurking beneath the desert soil. Because behind the scenes, Vidian Land Solutions had secretly fronted 90% of the cost, leaving Cody's actual out-of-pocket contribution at a mere $82,000, an amount so low it would have seemed almost laughable to anyone unaware of the elaborate scheme unfolding. And the reason was chillingly simple. The land was not just home to a minor prairie dog infestation or a simple plague. It harbored levels of naturally occurring arsenic and mercury so high that residential development was commercially unviable, as had been revealed in a confidential environmental survey that Cody was contractually bound to suppress, hidden from his own family and the public alike. A document that documented the presence of toxic heavy metals deep within the earth, in concentrations that would make any building project a nightmare. A report that, if disclosed, would have immediately exposed the land as unfit for homes. Yet the narrative Cody presented was brilliant in its simplicity, attributing the land's low cost to plague-ridden prairie dogs, a misdirection so convincing that even seasoned investors could be deceived, as Alex Reyes later admitted, calling the plague a gift, because it explained the low price without ever raising suspicion about the far more lethal reality, the hidden chemical hazard buried just beneath the surface, a hazard that would later transform the property into the epicenter of an environmental crime. And the stage was set for Phase 2, the cleansing protocol, the heart of the conspiracy, in which the contract detailed the application of TCD7, an experimental, unregistered chemical sterilant that was a potent dioxin variant engineered for dual purposes. First, to eradicate any remaining biological contaminants, including the plague bacteria, and second, and far more ominously, to bind to the arsenic and mercury in the soil, breaking down the metals over 18 months into inert compounds that would be less detectable in future tests. A chemical both illegal and invisible, banned by the EPA for its extreme toxicity and unknown long-term environmental consequences, a substance so dangerous it could rewrite the biology of any living organism exposed to it. Yet Cody's role was that of the obedient guardian, a domestic figure tasked with maintaining the illusion of a normal family presence, while clandestine crews, disguised as water delivery personnel or geological surveyors, applied the TCD7 across the 14-acre property at night. And Phase 3, the Human Shield Clause, explicitly required a long-term resident to live on-site to normalize the property during the chemical treatment. A description that perfectly matched Janelle Brown, living off-grid, self-sufficient, and completely unaware that she and her teenage daughter Savannah were now involuntary participants in a high-stakes environmental experiment. While Cody received an additional $50,000 for maintaining this cover for 12 months, transforming his own family into both witnesses and victims of the chemical assault. And the operation was conducted with terrifying precision. Over 8 nights in the summer of 2021, from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., when tanker trucks with magnetically covered logos would deliver TCD7 mixed with water from Cody's cistern, small crews in full hazmat suits would deploy hoses across acres of land, spraying a fine mist that drifted into the air and soil, infiltrating the RV where Janelle and Savannah slept. And though precautions like wind direction monitoring were claimed, it was impossible to control every variable. And the girls' inexplicable fatigue, skin irritations, and respiratory issues during that period were just the first signs of the unfolding nightmare. A slow chemical siege on their bodies, orchestrated for profit, with Cody as both mastermind and passive observer, all for the promise of millions in a scheme that would eventually be uncovered through the courage of whistleblowers and federal investigation, as the EPA obtained a federal warrant on October 23rd, months after Janelle had moved her RV, arriving in a convoy of dark SUVs and a mobile laboratory van, transforming the deserted landscape into a hazardous materials site, with agents in full hazmat gear methodically walking the property, carrying soil vapor detectors and ground-penetrating radar, guided precisely by the detailed application maps provided by Alex Reyes, the whistleblower sampling every inch of soil from surface layers to deep cores, including roots and previously disturbed earth where Janelle's RV had once rested. And when the samples reached the National Enforcement Investigation Center in Colorado, scientists worked tirelessly, analyzing not just arsenic and mercury, but the chemical ghost TCD7, discovering concentrations around Janelle's former living area that were 3,000 times above the maximum allowable lifetime exposure, obliterating microbial life, binding persistently to soil, and confirming the chemical's dual function, scrubbing natural toxicity while replacing it with an even more dangerous synthetic hazard, proving Cody's motive and confirming the whistleblower's claim that the property was a multi-million-dollar time bomb, a calculated human and environmental assault. And as these results reverberated through the legal and scientific communities, it became chillingly clear that every decision Cody had made, every step of the plan, every false narrative, had been part of a deliberate orchestration to manipulate, expose, and profit, turning a reality TV family's private life into the epicenter of one of the most audacious environmental crimes ever documented. A story of greed, betrayal, chemical warfare, and federal justice intersecting in a single desert landscape, where the soil itself screamed the truth, bearing witness to the toxic legacy that Cody Brown had engineered. And as investigators pieced together the timeline, the chemical composition, the nighttime operations, and the human toll, the full horror of Coyote Pass unfolded layer by layer, revealing not just contamination, but a meticulously executed scheme in which human lives, nature, and law were manipulated for profit, all while the world had believed this was merely another quirky reality TV family drama. And the more deeply authorities investigated, the clearer it became that the land, the chemicals, the contracts, the whistleblowers, and the victims were all inextricably linked, forming a narrative so vast and detailed that every soil sample, every lab report, every witness testimony told a chapter of betrayal and greed, culminating in a revelation that Cody's plan, designed to conceal deadly natural toxins while installing a far more lethal chemical hazard, had not only been criminal but morally indefensible, as it placed the lives of his own wife and child at risk. And yet, Despite the overwhelming evidence and catastrophic lab findings, the full scale of the operation was only beginning to be understood. As EPA forensic scientists meticulously reconstructed each night of spraying, each drop of TCD7, each wind shift, each exposure event, building a comprehensive picture of how greed and deception can manifest in environmental and human harm. And as the story continued to unfold, it became clear that Coyote Pass was not merely a property or an investment. It was a crime scene, a laboratory of human vulnerability, a stage for corporate and personal betrayal, a testament to the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition, and a stark reminder that beneath seemingly ordinary exteriors, monumental crimes could be orchestrated, hidden by narrative, charm, and the illusion of family dysfunction. While the truth buried in the soil, waiting decades to reveal itself, could not be suppressed indefinitely, and now, with the whistleblower's revelations, the federal raid, and the lab results confirming the presence of TCD7, arsenic, and mercury manipulation, the story of Coyote Pass had become not just a cautionary tale, but a landmark case, exposing the intersections of environmental law, corporate greed, chemical weaponization, and human exploitation, culminating in an investigation and narrative so complex, so horrifying, that it redefined the concept of real estate fraud, familial betrayal, and environmental crime in one sweeping, terrifying saga where every grain of soil, every chemical mist, every financial transaction, and every act of negligence or complicity contributed to a narrative that was as morally grotesque as it was legally damning. A story that had begun with prairie dogs and a low price tag, and ended with the exposure of a multi-million-dollar conspiracy, a chemical assault, and the near destruction of human health and environmental integrity at Coyote Pass, all meticulously planned, executed, and ultimately unearthed, proving that in the deserts of greed and secrecy, truth eventually surfaces, persistent as the contaminated soil, waiting for justice to reach it layer by toxic layer. Waiting for justice to reach it layer by toxic layer. It told the story of a dirty purchase, an illegal cure, and a human shield, a narrative so intricate and insidious that it seemed almost unimaginable. Yet, when laid bare, revealed a web of deceit, manipulation, and calculated risk that had been meticulously orchestrated by Cody Brown and his secret partners, orchestrators who had used the guise of reality television, familial loyalty, and environmental oversight to disguise one of the most audacious criminal schemes in recent American history, a scheme that would ultimately intertwine the fate of an entire family, the lives of unsuspecting residents, the environmental integrity of Coyote Pass, and the legal authority of the United States Environmental Protection Agency. And the story began with a deceptively simple real estate transaction, the $820,000 purchase of a 14-acre plot of land known as Coyote Pass, a price tag that, to the casual observer, might have suggested a fair market value or a minor bargain. Yet, behind the scenes, Vidian Land Solutions had secretly fronted 90% of the cost, leaving Cody Brown's actual financial exposure at a mere $82,000, a figure that, while modest, belied the magnitude of the risk and deception involved, for the land was far from ordinary. It was contaminated not only with plague-infested prairie dogs, but, more insidiously, with naturally occurring arsenic and mercury at levels that made residential development commercially prohibitive, a fact uncovered by a previous undisclosed environmental survey which Cody was contractually obligated to conceal from both his family and the public. A survey whose revelation would have rendered the purchase and any subsequent development of the land virtually impossible without significant deception. And so, the plague served as the perfect cover story, a convenient and seemingly plausible explanation for why the land's market value was so low. And Alex Reyes, the whistleblower, would later describe the plague as a gift, a narrative tool that allowed the conspirators to deflect suspicion from the far more dangerous truth, that the soil was saturated with heavy metals, invisible yet lethally potent, and that no rational buyer would construct million-dollar homes atop such toxic ground, whereas a prairie dog problem, though inconvenient, sounded manageable and even mundane. A brilliant piece of misdirection that laid the foundation for what would become a multi-phase criminal operation, beginning with the cleansing protocol, the heart of the conspiracy, a plan meticulously codified in a secret contract which outlined the use of an experimental and unregistered chemical sterilant known internally as TCD7, a highly potent dioxin variant engineered for two principal purposes. First, to eradicate any lingering biological contaminants, including the bacterium responsible for the plague. And second, and more critically, to act as a chelation agent, binding to heavy metals within the soil and gradually transforming them into less detectable, inert compounds over a period of 18 months, a chemical that was both illegal and banned by the EPA due to its extreme toxicity and unknown long-term environmental consequences. A chemical ghost capable of vanishing from standard soil tests, if one simply waited long enough, obtained by Vidian through opaque offshore shell corporations, while Cody's role, explicitly defined in the contract, was that of on-site guardian and cover, a domestic front to maintain the illusion of normalcy while Vidian's crews, disguised as surveyors or water delivery personnel, administered TCD-7 under the cover of darkness, and the operation included a chilling human element, a phase in the conspiracy that demanded a long-term residential presence, a single self-sufficient inhabitant who could unwittingly serve as a shield, monitoring the property and normalizing it for public perception, a role that Janelle Brown would unknowingly fulfill, living with her children in a thin-walled RV while being exposed nightly to one of the most dangerous chemical compounds synthesized in recent history, with Cody receiving an additional $50,000 for successfully maintaining this residential cover for a minimum of 12 months, a grotesque financial incentive for placing his family at risk. And the end game, the so-called clean flip, involved waiting for 18 to 24 months for the TCD-7 to degrade to undetectable levels, after which a friendly environmental testing firm would issue falsified reports claiming the land was pristine, at which point the property would be sold to a national home builder for an estimated $15 million, securing a projected profit of over $10 million to be split evenly, guaranteeing Cody Brown a minimum payout of $5 million, a payoff for orchestrating one of the most audacious chemical deceptions imaginable. While the EPA scrambled to understand TCD-7, described by insiders as a nightmare chemical, a tetrachlorozoxane derivative, engineered specifically for aggressive action against heavy metals, yet devastatingly toxic to all living organisms, a compound whose short-term exposure could produce severe skin lesions, respiratory distress, and liver damage, while its long-term effects included carcinogenic and endocrine-disrupting properties capable of interfering with human development, causing birth defects, cancers, and widespread physiological disruption. A chemical that did not merely poison but rewrote biological processes on a cellular level, as confirmed by Alex Reyes, who described crews clad in full positive pressure hazmat suits, spraying TCD-7 mist across acres just 100 feet from Janelle's RV, calculating wind direction with precision, yet utterly unable to mitigate the invisible drifting particles that constantly threatened the health of a mother and her children. And over 8 nights in the summer of 2021, between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., tanker trucks with concealed logos arrived, hoses were unspooled, and TCD-7-laced water from Cody's system was sprayed in fine mist over the property, an operation executed with efficiency, secrecy, and chilling disregard for human life, as Janelle and Savannah, living daily within this toxic bubble, experienced fatigue, respiratory irritation, and biological stress without understanding the cause. They're suffering a direct consequence of Cody's prioritization of profit over family. And yet, despite the mounting evidence, Cody's public persona remained that of a concerned patriarch, reality TV father, and husband, until whistleblower testimony and detailed contracts fell into the hands of federal authorities, arming the EPA with maps, chemical logs, and insider accounts that revealed not only the presence of TCD-7, but the systematic way in which it had been applied. And so, on an overcast morning in October 2023, long after Janelle had moved her RV, a convoy of dark SUVs and a white mobile lab descended on Coyote Pass, transforming the landscape into a fully controlled hazardous materials site, with agents in full hazmat suits conducting methodical soil sampling, core drilling, and chemical detection to confirm the epicenter of human exposure, revealing the precise locations where Janelle and her children had been unknowingly subjected to lethal toxins. And when samples were analyzed at the EPA's National Enforcement Investigation Center, concentrations of TCD-7 were found to be 3,000 times higher than maximum lifetime exposure limits, while arsenic and mercury levels in treated areas were dramatically reduced, confirming that the chemical was performing exactly as designed, replacing natural but hazardous toxins with a far more dangerous synthetic compound, a horrifying revelation that underscored the deliberate, profit-driven nature of the conspiracy. And the legal proceedings that followed were unprecedented, blending public fascination with reality TV drama with the sobering implications of environmental terrorism, as Cody Brown and Victor Sterling faced federal charges ranging from conspiracy to commit environmental fraud to violations of the Toxic Substances Control Act. And the trial, overseen by Judge Maria Flores, became a national spectacle, revealing the intricate details of clandestine operations, financial misdirection, and the systematic use of human life as a shield, with courtroom cross-examinations that reframed Janelle's exhaustion, her daughter's illness, and the family's internal conflicts as the physical consequences of exposure to TCD7, a chemical weapon masquerading as land development. And as the jury deliberated, it became clear that the evidence was irrefutable, culminating in guilty verdicts on all counts, historic fines totaling $50 million, decades-long prison sentences, and the permanent federal seizure of Coyote Pass for environmental remediation, transforming a site of criminal enterprise into a symbol of accountability. While the surviving family members, Janelle, Christine, and their children, received civil settlements and medical monitoring, their lives irrevocably altered yet validated. Their resilience reframed not merely as emotional fortitude, but as a triumph over a chemical, financial, and moral assault. A story that left the nation grappling with questions about the boundaries of ambition, the ethics of family, and the hidden dangers lurking beneath the facade of entertainment. A story that proves that the human will to survive, to reclaim autonomy, health, and dignity can outlast even the most insidious schemes. A story whose lessons extend far beyond the borders of Flagstaff, Arizona, into the very core of societal and environmental consciousness, leaving the final question for every observer, journalist, policymaker, and citizen. How many other Coyote Passes exist, where deception, profit, and poison intersect, hidden beneath the surface of ordinary life, waiting for exposure, accountability, and justice? Justice?